Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of AJTV. I'm AJ Soccer, and I know it's been a while since I did my last video, but when I saw this game live, I knew I had to do a video on it. I want to do a couple more videos on some matches from the Pro Tour, but this one in particular, I wanted to get out of the way. It's a really, really good game. It's round 13 between Lucas Yakovsky and Guillaume Wafotapa. Wafotapa, you know, fresh off of suspension, right back on the Pro Tour, total control master, and this game is just like a masterclass in control mirrors as well as a pretty awesome like setting up, like deciding on setting up and execution of a game plan by Lucas. And let's just get to the game. It's actually kind of a long game, so we should get to it. Wafotapa is playing an Esper control deck as he is wont to do, and Lucas Yakovsky is playing a blue-white-red control deck, even more controlling than Jerry's deck. He's got, D-Sphere and Jace Architect of Will and whatnot. And this is game 2. Wafotapa is up, as you can see. And that's actually due to Lucas mulliganing to like 2 or 3 and just drawing and passing until he conceded. So, as far as I know, Wafotapa did not know what Lucas was playing going into this game, but as we'll see from some of his sideboard choices, he must have had some sort of inkling as to what was up. But these early turns from all these control mirrors are pretty much just draw go with a bunch of cycling, Azorius Charms and Think Twice's, just making land drops. The two most important resources in control mirrors are one, mana, which, sometimes things can get a little complex with Farseek because you have to tap lower for it, but then you're up a land and whatever. But we don't have to worry about any of those complications. This matchup, it's just straight making land drops. There you saw Lucas doesn't have another land, so he thought about playing his Snapcaster, but he decides to just flashback his Think Twice, hoping to hit a land, and he missed. So now he's at 8 cards. And here we have the first really pivotal point of the game. I'm fairly certain that, flashing back Think Twice is the standard line there. But once you miss that land drop, now we have a decision to make. As you can see on the right, there's a cards in hand graphic, which, big ups to the WotC crew for putting that together for the coverage. It really, really improved the experience. One small thing is that his Azorius Charm actually got cycled, and the gold card that you're seeing in his hand is actually Detention Sphere. So with this being his 8-card hand, what do you discard? And I do think you have to discard here. By just jamming Jace, you open yourself up to a lot of sequences, like backbreaking sequences, like counter your Jace, untap, play Jace Memory Adept, then you have to spend your turn Detention Sphering it, and Wafotapa can, play another Jace or use that extra turn to force through a Sphinx's Rev or whatever. And you also kind of want to just Snapcaster your Azorius Charm on Guillaume's end step because you really want to hit this land drop. So, putting that aside as an option, what do you discard here? Now, this is the start of one of the most beautiful, decisions and executions of a game plan that I've seen in recent history. And it became apparent to me that this game was going to be unique on this turn because when I was watching this live, I instantly thought that Psychic Spiral was hitting the bin because it doesn't really do anything until, way, 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 way later in the game. And it doesn't actually help further, hitting your land drops and whatnot, and all your other cards are good. Excuse me, I'm getting over a bit of a cold. That is not what Lucas does. So if I use my whiteboard overlay here, I don't think you can pitch Jace. It's supposed to be a circle, but I kind of crossed straight through there. I don't think you can pitch Jace because you need it to fight Guillaume's Jaces, and it's just, a must-answer card that can get a lot of card advantage. I think that it's like your best card here. Dispel, obviously, you're going to keep your one counter. Snapcasters are both just too good to discard, both allowing you to cycle the Azorius Charm on end step, as well as look to dispel again later on. It's not only a good source of card advantage and another counter if there's a counter war, the inevitable counter war, but it's also a threat, which once you can get even if it's just a 2-1 anything on the board, then the onus to do something first is now entirely on your opponent, and you don't have to worry about blinking. And Snapcaster having flash and giving you immediate value is one of the best cards in all of Magic to do exactly that. So I think you have to hold on to both Snapcasters. And then Sphinx's Revelation, you're definitely keeping at least one, because it's kind of your win condition. And I strongly believe in keeping two because you're going to need to do a small one to make your land drops, more than likely. Or if you get lucky with your Azorius Charm, you can use the Sphinx's Revs as bait, Revelation for 3 and then untap and Revelation for 4 or what have you. So I think both Revelations are good, which leaves us to Psychic Spiral and Detention Sphere. Naturally, I thought Sphere is good at killing Jaces and just generally a good card for the type of hands that we're constructing with our own Jace. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's an action card, whereas Psychic Spiral doesn't actually do anything. But as we're going to see, Lucas actually pitches the Detention Sphere. Now, this shows that rather than outright winning the Jace War, Lucas's plan is to delay the game to the point where he can get off his spiral and get to the point where it doesn't matter that Guillaume is advantaged, because he'll push that advantage with a Jace and then get spiraled out. So, now, as I said, the important parts of control matchups are land drops and cards in hand. Just raw materials. Lucas is now down a land drop. Well, he's about to be. He is down a land drop and down a card. His Detention Sphere didn't trade for anything, it's just in his yard. So, Guillaume should be incredibly advantaged here. The end step Snapcaster, the goal of this is obviously to flashback the charm and try and hit your land drops. And Guillaume knows that. And he's actually going to fight over the Snapcaster, which normally, a 2-1 that cantrips isn't a huge deal and you want to save your counters for more important things. But the important things that Guillaume would want to counter are things like Jace and Sphinx's Revelation, which aren't really threats when Lucas is missing land drops. This is actually like a very aggressive line to basically insist that Lucas continue to miss land, and Guillaume's hoping to just bury him and tuck the match away as quickly as possible. Unfortunately for him, Lucas does draw a land, and now we see another interesting sequence, which is play Steam Vents untapped and tap down to 1 mana for a Jace. Now, this 100% turns this Dispel face up. You know, it's not a huge deal. Guillaume has the 2 mana. You want to be able to dispel the negate. I'm going crazy with my John Madden arrows here. But it 100% turns the Dispel face up. And that will be relevant, as you'll see. Now here is another huge point in the game that really made me sit up and take note. Besides the spiral, not discarding spiral and keeping that, trying to play that strategy and keep it hidden, plussing Jace here. Now, why would you plus Jace to 5? Because Guillaume can just Snapcaster and attack it if you -2. Now, there are pluses and minuses on both sides, really. Let's go pluses for plussing it. All right, reasons that you would want Jace on 5, because now Guillaume can't just Snapcaster and attack it, so he's gonna have to either play his own Jace, which will tap him out, and then Lucas can Revelation, or have exactly a Detention Sphere, which isn't exactly the most played card in these decks. Sometimes they'll have maybe 1 or 2. And otherwise, the Jace is really going to start to take over the game for Lucas. And if Guillaume taps out for Jace, not only is he out the Jace, but as I said, Lucas gets to resolve the Sphinx's Revelation. Now let's talk about the other side of it, minusing it. Not only are you basically drawing 2 cards or, drawing a land, I think that's really important right now. Lucas is light on lands, like he's down a land drop and down, or he's about to be down a land drop because, he was on the play, so Wafutapa is about to make his 6th land drop, whereas Lucas just made his 5th. He needs the lands. He's also down a card because he discarded the Detention Sphere for no value, and being down cards and land drops makes it much more tempting to plus the Jace. And once you're on this Psychic Spiral plan, I think that it's less important to defend, preemptively defend against Wafutapa's Jace, in that if he Jaces you and mills you, then you can Psychic Spiral. The problem is that Lucas knows that he is not set up to spiral yet. He doesn't have the resources to force his spiral through, and Guillaume can just plus his Jace a couple times, pull too far ahead. Lucas just isn't prepared for a Jace right now. But if you assume that Wafutapa doesn't have a Jace, or that you can beat a Jace, if Lucas had pitched another card instead of this Detention Sphere, say he pitched the second Sphinx's Revelation instead of this Detention Sphere, then I almost assure you that Jace would be minused here, and if Wafutapa's sequence was Snapcaster, attack Jace, play his own Jace, then you get to Detention Sphere the Jace and have Dispel mana up for any Sphinx's Revs, and the game continues. But since the Detention Sphere got pitched, you're pretty cold to the sequence of Snapcaster, attack Jace, play 5 mana Jace Memory Adept. But again, if Detention Sphere was in hand, the minus would be totally okay, because not only do you get the cards for the land drop and to make up for having to discard, but you're also getting rid of a Snapcaster. I mean, the 2-1 will be in play, and as I said, the onus will be on you as Lucas to do something first, because Guillaume has a threat and you don't. But that's 1 less Snapcaster in hand. That's 1 less counter that Wafutapa is going to have going into the end game, where your end game strategy is to spiral him out. So 1 less counter for the Spiral War in the form of that Snapcaster does have its own value. But with the Detention Sphere discarded, Lucas felt like he was too ill-prepared for the sequence of Snapcaster into Jace Memory Adept, and he decides to plus it, which he actually does get punished because Wafutapa does indeed have the Detention Sphere. So he's not... The Jace is not going to either take over the game or preemptively trade for a Jace and a turn's worth of mana up for Wafutapa, which are the two goals, the two things that Lucas really wanted to happen, one of those two things. Instead, it got Detention Sphered. There, Guillaume tapped out to flashback a Think Twice. Lucas could have resolved a Sphinx's Revelation for 2. Not exactly where he wants to be, because, again, he's afraid of that Jace. Once you play around the Jace by plussing, you have to continue to play around the Jace by not tapping out for a Revelation. He goes for it on Guillaume's end step, and again, this is a situation where Guillaume plays very aggressively. I know it sounds weird to hear this control deck playing aggressively, and to hear Wafutapa, of all people, playing aggressively, but he feels that he's advantaged enough that he can sacrifice, fractions of resources in order to sort of smother Lucas in that slight advantage, sort of push that advantage while he can, while it's a significant advantage. Think of it this way: if one player is up a card from, say, 19 cards to 20 cards, it's less significant than a player being up a card, or I'm sorry, it's more significant than a player being up cards when it's 29 to 30 cards, say. So Guillaume's trying to keep both players on minimal resources so that the card and land drop that Lucas is down is more pronounced. So he actually Snapcaster dissipates this, hoping that Lucas will continue to miss land drops. Like, normally you wouldn't want to counter a Divination, a Sphinx's Revelation for 2 here, but especially because that indicates that Lucas likely has another Revelation if he's willing to spew this one off for 2. But Guillaume is going to play it hard and fast, and use his Snapcaster Dissipate there, looking to cycle his Azorius Charm and continue, or Think Twice, and continue to build towards his own Revelation to really bury Lucas. But Lucas does draw another land, which is significant. And Guillaume, Think Twice's. He's not really afraid of a Revelation for 3. If Lucas Revelations for 3 there, then Guillaume can either play his own Jace, or he doesn't have a Jace, but he has Sphinx's Revelation, which he could just, Revelation for 4 or whatever. He's not really scared. He'd rather just continue to get deeper penetration into his deck with the Think Twice's, cycling and trying to hit those land drops. That's way more important to him now. Watery Grave untapped, indeed indicating a Revelation, but not necessarily meaning he's, pricing him into casting it or anything. It's just indicating to Lucas what I assume he already knows, which is that he has a Revelation in hand. Lucas, now only down to 1 Revelation, can't afford to play it for 3, especially into all that mana and all those cards. So he's going to try and get into a position where he can protect it with a Dispel, with his, signaled Dispel. So Steam Vent's untapped once again, indicating that he wants to look to Revelation soon. And Wafutapa basically already knows that Lucas has another Revelation in hand from the fact that Lucas so willingly played his first Revelation for only 2. Now, here's the third super interesting point of the game. Well, I guess the fourth, after the aggressive counter on the Divination. Right here, Wafutapa flashes back his Think Twice. Let's rewind it a little, watch that again. Whoop, a little further. So here, we're on Lucas's end step. Lucas just played an untapped Steam Vents. Wafutapa leads with flashback, then casts another Think Twice. And here, I think that Guillaume makes the first true blunder of the game. You know, maybe I'm missing something. You know, I don't want to just assume that Guillaume, the one of the best players of all time, like, you know, Hall of Fame lock Guillaume Wafotapa, is just making a giant mistake here. But I think that Guillaume has to just take the turn back here. I think what happened was that Guillaume forgot about Dispel, or didn't consider the Dispel that Lucas had basically turned face up the turn before. I think Wafotapa is tapping out here to induce this exact Sphinx's Revelation, which he assumed was going to be for 4, so that Wafotapa could then play his own Revelation for, say, 3, and leave up counter mana, and that would put him in a pretty unlosable position, as his Revelation is going to have more value with more land drops and, you know, a better hand in general. But this Dispel that Guillaume should know about really puts a damper on that plan, because Lucas just simply Revelations for 3 instead of 4, leaves up the Dispel, and now Wafotapa can't Revelation. And he's kind of coming to that realization after he draws, and I think he ends up just playing an Augur Bolus this turn, because he knows that he can't Revelation into this Dispel, or risk just losing the game outright. So Augur hits another Sphinx's Revelation, and Guillaume is just up tons and tons of cards. Now, if you look at this game state, whoop, I missed it a little, but if you look at the game state, by every metric, Guillaume is really, really far ahead. He has more cards in hand, his hand is better, he has more lands in play, and he has threats in play. He has a clock. By every conceivable metric, Guillaume is way, way ahead this game. But Lucas has a plan, and he has since that missed land drop on turn 5. And now we're going to see the sort of mid-game transition as Lucas executes that game plan beautifully. So with the second Revelation off of the Augur, Guillaume's comfortable getting this one countered. This is just a, you know, duress, basically, because he has to get rid of this Dispel eventually. So sure enough, Lucas obliges with the Dispel. And Guillaume continues to make land drops and, you know, cycle and sculpt his hand. So now that Lucas got his Revelation off and countered Wafotapa's Revelation, has some land drops, he cycled Azorius Charm into more land, you know, another land drop and a negate. If you look at this game state here, as Wafotapa cycles the Azorius Charm, the game is all but equalized. I mean, Wafotapa has a slight edge because he has the clock and he's up, you know, I think he's up a little, like maybe 2 cards, in addition to having two clocks, basically, the creatures and the Drown Yard. But he's very slightly ahead, whereas earlier in the game, you would say that, you know, commentating it, I would feel like Wafotapa was all but assured victory. And I know I rag on the commentators sometimes in these videos, but holy smokes. The booth was on top of this one. It was Tim Willoughby and Zach Hill in the booth, and they saw this Psychic Spiral play coming from a mile away and commentated it absolutely beautifully. Really, I mean, I was watching it live and was just blown away at how awesome this game was. So, Wafotapa continuing to do his thing, you know, attacking, cycling, and Drown Yarding. While Lucas is just kind of chilling. I mean, he's kind of looking to equalize the game, even at the cost of getting drown yarded or jaced. Normally, it would be Lucas would have to really be on top of things and sort of be proactive in this spot because he would need to get Guillaume dead. He can't just equalize the game because drown yard is like the ultimate trump in an otherwise equalized game. So having the psychic spiral and being on that game plan means that that is not actually the case. It's possible here that not knowing what Lucas was doing exactly caused the supreme verdict to be in Guillaume's deck post board, or maybe he wants it. I don't know, but obviously not very good in this game, so he discards it. Now here we're about to come up to the fourth or fifth really interesting sequence of the game, which is that Lucas plays a Boros Reckoner, which is not only a decent clock, but also completely stabilizes the aggression, the damage clock of Wafo-Tapa, which is pretty significant, seeing as Lucas is at 6 facing down 4. And Wafo-Tapa, with a million billion cards in hand, what could he possibly be afraid of, He can easily answer a Jace. He races anything else. He can outrun a Sphinx's Revelation with his own Revelation plus Drown Yard. What could he possibly need these counters for, Why not just continue to present this threat? And Yukovsky is just selling this absolutely beautifully. He's really making Wafo-Tapa think that they're playing the type of game that Wafo-Tapa thinks that he's playing. When Lucas is, he's got the rope-a-dope, the whole time setting this up. So he plays the Reckoner, baits out the Dissipate from Guillaume, and Tamiyo, once again, sort of like pseudo-stabilizing the aggression aspect, the damage threat from Wafo-Tapa, while also, in addition to buying that sort of time and trying to stabilize the board so you don't die, it's also stuff that Wafo-Tapa believes he has to fight over. So, sure enough, Snapcaster Dissipate from Wafo-Tapa meets Snapcaster Dispel from Lucas. And now Wafo-Tapa is going to have to invest resources in killing Tamiyo, or at the very least, be down resources while Tamiyo helps Lucas stabilize the board and potentially draw a bunch of cards off of the -2. And at the same time, by setting this up so beautifully, Lucas is like, all right, so I have my threat, I'm good to go, and like he's not worried about a Sphinx's Revelation or anything like that. But Guillaume is like, all right, here's my spot. I got him tapped out. He had to use all of his resources to stabilize the board because I had this impressive clock and hitting from both angles with the Drown Yard and everything. Lucas had to be proactive. He has to kill me before I Drown Yard him out, while also stabilizing the board from my creatures. So, I sculpted this beautifully. I got him into this spot where he had to tap out to get to this point, and now I get to do whatever I want, which is going to include a Jace, which, Wafo-Tapa believes is going to be the ultimate trump, and why wouldn't he believe that? It almost always is. But that is exactly what Lucas has been planning for this entire time. So rather than, if Wafo-Tapa somehow had a scouting a scout information from someone knowing about Lucas's game plan here, then instead of Augur Jace, this turn is almost assuredly Sphinx's Revelation for, say, 4 or 5, and he almost assuredly wins. But that line is slightly worse against everything. You know, Jace is better against everything except for this exact game plan. You know, the baiting your counters into Spiral. So, Guillaume thinking here, he played his Jace, he counted Lucas's library. He actually decides to draw a card here, which is, you know, completely correct. It's why would you want to risk getting no value out of your card when you're this far ahead? Just, you know, just bury him. There's no reason to kill him as fast as possible. Just bury him. So, as we enter the end game, which is, you know, looks pretty typical and looks like Waffletapa should probably never lose. We know that the early game, Lucas was way behind. In the mid game, he not only stabilized and almost equalized, he also enacted this game plan that he had from the start. And as we enter the end game, that disadvantage in the early game is shown in the game state now. Like, here, I'll pause it. Missing one land drop and discarding one card. You would think that's not a big deal with this many lands in play and, you know, these full hands and all of that. But look at the boards and you'll see how that advantage has snowballed. Guillaume has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lands. He's still down a land. Actually 2, I think, because Waffletop is about to make a land drop. And I think he's also down at least 1 card. Plus, a freaking Jace Memory Adept. And way more creatures. This is how that advantage is shown, is illustrated. It's no longer, you know, it's not like Lucas is dead, but that disadvantage early is certainly pronounced, and it's pronounced more than just a land and a card. Because of the way that advantage works, it snowballs. Another indicator, which normally isn't a huge deal for control mirrors, but the life total differential here is another sort of result of that early advantage that Waffletapa basically was given. But the big one here is Jace. You know, Lucas missed the land drop and discarded a card. 15 turns later, Guillaume has a Jace. So Lucas really does one last hard sell of his situation and his game plan, which is he uses the Tamiyo to tap Drownyard rather than a creature. This is pretty awesome. The reason that this is awesome is because Lucas is saying, I am no longer threatened by your creatures. Okay, I'm not going to die to damage this game, Frenchie. Those were his exact words, I'm pretty sure. Waffletapa is like, okay, so, you know, you're not going to die to my creatures. You're comfortable not tapping a creature. You're afraid of the Drown Yard. And Lucas just Hollywooding it up, shaking in his boots. He's like, oh no, please don't Drown Yard me. When really, that's all he wants to happen. So he's not only saying, I'm afraid of getting milled by tapping the Drown Yard, but he's also like, ooh, look how low my library is by revelationing for some huge amount, four or so. And he's able to do that because Guillaume tapped so low to get his Jace online. Another Drown Yard, Guillaume's like, sweet, this is locked up, you know? And obviously, that revelation that Lucas used is a must counter for Guillaume. Like, using his Psychic Strike there is an almost forced play. So, once again, Lucas is sort of using his mana to extract or to trade counters while he can with Guillaume, because he doesn't care that he's tapping out, because Lucas knows that he's not going to use his counters for any of Guillaume's spells. Lucas doesn't care if the Jace resolves, because that's what his whole game plan is based around, and he doesn't care that, you know, Guillaume is being more efficient so he gets more Drown Yard activations. And he certainly doesn't care about Sphinx's Revelation, because all that's doing is tapping Guillaume so low that he's not going to be prepared to fight over a Psychic Spiral. So Guillaume says, look, I'm rich, I have a million billion cards, and they're all foil. Rich, rich in both sense. I meant card rich, but he does foil out all his decks, which is pretty sweet. Pretty pimpin'. And Jace goes to the dome. Mill 10. And I think that that's the second big blunder from Guillaume, is he doesn't have to do that there. His revelation hit. He should be more than happy to just plus Jace one more time. And then with 2 Drown Yards, you know, you have enough creatures to attack the Tamiyo, keep it off of ultimate, and with 2 Drown Yards, you're going to be able to Jace him out no matter what. It would take something pretty crazy to lose, so just play it safe. That crazy thing being a Psychic Spiral, and playing it safe is not what Guillaume does in this game. Excuse me. So here is like kind of a little awkward thing, but not actually a huge deal. Which is that Guillaume actually forgets that Detention Sphere hits his own Snapcasters, and he looks to Detention Sphere, Lucas's Snapcaster, and attack Tamiyo dead instead, or lethal in 2, instead of just Detention Sphering the Tamiyo and attacking and trading off Snapcasters. It's a little awkward, but like it doesn't actually change anything because Lucas is not going to die to damage. The cards that Lucas is about to draw for the Tamiyo aren't really relevant, and the Detention Sphere from Guillaume is going to happen no matter what, because he would have de-sphered the Tamiyo instead of the Snapcaster, because he wouldn't want Tamiyo to draw a bunch of cards, which it ends up doing, but like I said, it doesn't actually matter, because Guillaume's tapped so low that Lucas only needs 1 counter to get his Psychic Spiral to resolve, and he has that 1 counter, so he doesn't actually need to draw cards here, but he does play it clean and draw the extra cards. You see, he is counting counting his graveyard, counting Guillaume's like incidentally counting Guillaume's library, and it adds up to death. So now Lucas, having danced Wafotapa into the corner here, is just trying to make sure, you know, he does everything right and is able to close out the game with this absolutely beautiful game plan that he sculpted on turn 5 to wait until turn, 25 or whatever this is to pull the trigger and, win the game. I'll give you the satisfaction of watching it, close out. Even though it's taking forever. I'm so impatient. Kill him! Do it! Psychic Spiral! He's dead! but yeah, as I was saying, this is like absolute masterclass in control mirror. I really wish that games 1 and 3 got played properly. Game 1, Lucas just mulled to oblivion and scooped without playing a card. And Game 3, they are so tight on time that they're both playing crazily and aggressively. And spoilers, it ends up just being a draw, as it is almost assuredly going to. So yeah, there's the Psychic Spiral. Guillaume says, how many cards do you have in your graveyard? And Lucas says, a lot, and then fans them out. And Guillaume scoops. Wasn't that game awesome? I thought that game was awesome. Thank you all for watching episode 9 of AJTV. Like I said, hopefully I'll be doing more of these soon. Comment down there and let me know what you think of these, what you thought of this one, what you thought of the game, whether you saw some lines that maybe I didn't go over. I try and respond to all the comments on all my Star City articles, as well as, my YouTube channel. Yeah, check out my stream, follow me on Twitter, all that cool stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Yeah, even got a little outro page. Look at that. Follow me on Twitter.